Hello and welcome to my latest labor of love, a new presentation all about projectors, lemons to lemonade. So welcome to those of you who may be discovering my channel for the very first time. Welcome back to those of you who have been enjoying some of my other videos and are ready for more. I look forward to this adventure together today. I really had a lot of fun putting together these slides and hope that you will walk away with something perhaps new, something practical, something that can be just, I don't know, necessary missing piece for you or perhaps for someone you love. So before we dive in, because we got a lot of stuff to cover today, for those of you who are encountering me for the very first time, my name is Melanie Halpert. I am a 5'1" quad right splenic projector. So really outside of the box, very intuitive, always up for exploring what is possible when we shift our behavior, shift our energy to operate in alignment with who we really are. I've been working for more than 2 decades now in the field of holistic health. And I have actually had my own private practice in healing since 2008. I am a certified body talk practitioner. I've explored all kinds of modalities. People come to see me for so many things, from physical pain to mental and emotional stuff, life path, you name it. And I've always really enjoyed having the tools to address each and every person that comes my way as a unique individual. And human design has just taken all of that to the next level. So becoming a certified living your design guide, and now being a human design analyst in training, is kind of like a dream come true. I'm so grateful to everyone who has been a part of this journey thus far. Grateful to my trajectory and to my fractal and to the people on my path that are just, helping me do what I do best. I feel very humbled and just much gratitude. And of course, grateful to all of you, because without you, I would have nobody to present to, nobody to have fun creating for. So my real favorite thing is getting under the hood. So like a mechanic, but with our energy, figuring out what is it that is not working, investigating that, and then fixing it so that things can run smoothly. And I mean, I'm all about, there's so many tools. I'm all about self-care and really nourishing ourselves on all levels, and how critical it is moving forward. We're really moving into a whole new era, and it's really critical that we take that time out to care for ourselves, but also to learn how to navigate, because more and more there are going to be things disintegrating, things that we have trusted, things that we have relied upon for the last 400 plus years that are starting to shift. So this human design is just such an incredible tool to help us align to who we really are, to be able to navigate this rugged terrain with a lot more grace and ease. So today's presentation is dedicated to all the projectors of the world, to those who love them and wish to understand them better. And I've got a bunch of good stuff here on the menu, and I will do my best to create some chapters in the video so that you can flip back and forth, revisit things, find things more easily. So we got 4 different segments. The first segment is about the projector aura. Second segment is about bitterness. The third segment is about recognition and invitation. And the fourth segment is about the signature of success. So those of you watching who are already familiar with all things projector, these things are going to be kind of like staples. Like, they're all really relevant to the projector. And if you're brand new to this, there might be things that you don't understand. Hopefully, this can be a great kind of initiation into your own journey and exploration. I'm always welcome to comments, whether it be on my YouTube, whether it be through the contact form on my website, melaniehalpert.com. It's always fun to see who's tuning in internationally from around the world. I'm recording this from just north of Montreal, Quebec, which is actually where the original messenger of the human design system was born, Ra-Uru-Hu. So yeah, looking forward to diving in. Without further ado, let us get started and take a peek at this first segment that is all about the projector aura. And you could see here that I have a subtitle, A Double-Edged Sword. We're going to find out why a little bit further into the segment. But to begin, let's just kind of take a peek at the projector in general and at the projector aura. So first and foremost, the human population is broken down into 4 types. The projector type makes up about 22% of the population. Now, this is not an exact number, but I did take a minute to consult with the latest statistics, and it does appear that the number is hovering somewhere between 22 and 23%. And we actually make up, I think we're the second most prevalent type in the population. And we've got a pretty important role to play. Unfortunately, because so many of us have no idea about the way that our energy is meant to operate, it can be really lonely and it can be really painful. I mean, I can only really speak for myself, but my life up until I discovered what it is to be a projector and what was just vastly wrong with the way that I was operating in the world, my life was really different than it is now. It was not always a happy place. And it's not always a happy place now either. It's just that there has been such a dramatic shift in my awareness because I get it now. It's like so many aha moments, things that clicked into place, things that were so elusive where I thought I was this giant failure. Not anymore. It's like I get it now. So each of the types has a very, very distinct chemistry, a very distinct auric frequency. When we talk about aura in human design, this is not anything like what you'll find in the New Age or spiritual community. It's not something that will change or shift. This is really built in. It is what you exude. It is what you transmit, along with, I guess, more detailed aspects of what it is that you broadcast. But each of the auras have, I guess you could say, defining qualities. And so the quality of the projector aura is focused and absorbing. And you can see here with the image of this projector here that I have, it is almost like a very pointed, conical, probing type of an energy field. So there is this kind of very pointy and penetrating quality to the projector aura, but it is not without purpose. So as you could see next to this, next to the projector, there's this kind of giant yellow diamond. And for those of you who are not familiar with the human design body graph, this is one of the centers of the body graph that is our center of identity, love, and direction. And it is a center that's powerfully connected to all of the cosmos, all of the directions, all of the seasons, to our unique trajectory, our pathway in life. It's very, very powerful. And so projectors, this 23% of the population, our aura is designed to lock onto that center in others to know their overall frequency. And why? It's because we are natural advisors. We're natural advisors with a gift to guide energy. And as tempting as it is for us to obsess about ourselves, we're actually here to have an outward focus of energy. We're really here to know others. And so the way that our aura is designed is to get that intel. So without even trying to, okay, this is like, we don't have to do anything. Our energy is always honing in and collecting energetic data from others. It's just the way that it is. And because so many of us have so much openness in our design, we're taking in so much of the world around us. The fact is that it is through that capacity to be conditioned that we do what we do best. Because we're here to guide energy, we're taking it in and able to guide it. However, there's also the other side, which is that we can get really lost in that and can actually be, out of all of the types, the hardest to wake up. One of the big things that projectors can be super just like disempowered about and totally distrustful of is in the actual like nature of their aura. And it's that we have a chemistry that is designed to be noticed. Now, you might be watching this and saying, that's BS, nobody notices me, nobody listens to me, I feel like such a loser, all of these things. And I can also understand that, because again, it comes back to the way that we manage our energy. And although we have a chemistry that is designed to be noticed, there are a lot of things that can kind of block that from happening. And these are some of the things we're going to cover in today's presentation. A couple of things here too is this concept of what we put out and what we take in. And I wanted to tie that into aura. We're going to be talking about one of those aspects in this segment, and then there's going to be another aspect that we're going to cover later on. So we're going to talk about in this segment what it is that we put out and this whole concept of wielding one's aura responsibly. It is so underrated, the extent to which we must totally take responsibility for the way in which we wield our aura, because this is not something that anybody else can do for us. And if we do not absolutely become aware of the way that we can feel to others when we are not aligned, I mean, this is like number one. It is the foundation of everything. If you don't get that, then I don't think that anything really is going to be able to work, because it is the cornerstone of everything. And then later in the presentation, more towards the end, we're going to talk about what we take in and the necessity of protecting one's aura. So getting into this, what we put out, wielding one's aura responsibly. This is where we bring in that whole concept of the double-edged sword. And you can see here at the top right-hand side of the screen here, this is a definition from a dictionary that said something that has or can have both favorable and unfavorable consequences. And it really is like that sword that can be used to kill, that can be used to hurt, or that can be used to protect and to save. So it's that it has different, it can appear to be different ways depending on the way that it is wielded. And what I wrote here, just as a really important reminder, is while projectors are not designed to be recognized or liked by everyone, the way in which we wield our aura makes an enormous difference as to the way we are experienced energetically by others. Some of you may have already seen my first video, which is still to this day, it's like the most popular video. It's all about the relationship between projectors and manifestors. And there's a segment of that presentation where we cover the auric interaction between the projector and the manifestor and how that can cause really, really big problems. So in this presentation, I'm really working with the projector in relationship to all of the other types. And we're not going to go crazy into detail here, but the point that I want to make is that with that pointed, probing, focused nature of our aura, it is not always comfortable for the other. And it doesn't really matter about what we're trying or not trying to do. It's kind of like spatial awareness, like being aware, okay, this is something that I have that is going to be affecting the environment around me. And when I use it this way, it has the potential to feel like this. When I use it this way, it has the potential to feel like that. And so the big thing with the projector is that if we are not operating in alignment with who we are, like really honoring our organic mechanics, which we will talk about as we go through the presentation, our energy can feel really abrasive, really invasive, really repellent to others. And so we've got the manifestor with the closed and repelling aura. And the manifestor, whether they try to or not, their aura is always pushing things out of the way. So in a manifestor's presence, any other type, their aura is going to kind of tend to shrink back. But that doesn't detract from the fact that when a projector is not operating correctly, their energy can feel really invasive to a manifestor, and a manifestor can get really angry about that. And then the projector can take that really personally, and it can become this whole big thing that doesn't even need to be a thing if we would just understand the way that we're designed to operate. With the generator and manifesting generator, they've got this really open and enveloping aura, and it could be super easy to assume that they're available when they're not. So again, it's about being sensitive to the fact that they may be picking up on that probing nature of our aura and not be in the space for it. And with the reflector, I mean, the reflector, although they have a really sophisticated aura that is not simply letting everything in, it's resistant and it's sampling, they're extremely sensitive to their environment. And a projector who is not operating in alignment will come up as very toxic for the aware reflector. So just bringing it back to this self-responsibility, really taking responsibility for the fact that this is the quality of our aura. It has a very probing and penetrative quality. Not everybody is in the space to receive that. But it does serve a purpose. And so becoming really empowered. A lot of this presentation is about the ways in which projectors can really victimize themselves when they don't have to. It's like, there could be so much like lamenting, like, oh man, nobody understands and it sucks and everybody's like this. But how much of that is because of the way that you yourself are managing your energy? Like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be harsh, but at the same time, like I've been super humbled so many times by the fact that I was literally creating my own misery just by the way that I was operating. It wasn't anybody else's fault outside of me. It was because of the way that I was managing my own energy, the way that I was wielding my own aura. And so this really is a great segue into our next chapter, which is all about bitterness. So if you are a projector watching this video, then I would be very surprised if you told me that you had never felt bitter or never felt resentful in your life. And if you are not projector, but you have projectors in your life, I would be surprised if you said that you have never picked up on bitterness from a projector, if you perhaps were not really in the space to interface with them, to take them in, what have you. It's a very kind of pungent energy, and this is why I have put the subtitle here of poisonous or purposeful, because this is the thing. Bitterness, which is the signpost, really, really, really powerful and purposeful signpost for the projector to know where they are kind of off-roading and needing to course correct. When that has yet to be fully grasped and understood, it can be absolutely poisonous, not only for oneself, but for all of the people in our life, because it's rare. I mean, yeah, there are some of us that can just fester and keep it inside, but I would say that, sometimes if it's strong enough, it's bound to escape somehow. And it can be a very, very, very challenging energy to just to sit with, to navigate, to deal with. And if I can bring you any solace today, is just to say that it doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't have to be like that. So something to understand is that the life force of a projector, okay, in its very nature, carries the chemistry of bitterness. And so you can see here on the right-hand side, there is a body graph and there's a bunch of lines here, some red, some black. So the lines represent life force energy. These are channels of energy. There are 36 channels in the entire body graph. 22 of them happen to be projected. And without getting into what that really means right now, I just wanted to illustrate, number one, how many of them there are in the body graph, and how bitterness, in being this inbuilt chemistry of these aspects of life force, bitterness is not something that can be eliminated or transcended. It really does serve a purpose. And like with our auric frequency, so what I was talking about before, bitterness can also be kind of like a double-edged sword, in that it can really feel like a curse instead of a gift. And the way that we can be victimized by it, the way that we can alienate others through it, but it can also be the most incredible ally and gift. What ends up happening is that when we're not operating correctly, this is where we meet resistance. Resistance shows up for us, projectors, as bitterness, feeling that resentment inside. And so until bitterness is recalibrated through alignment to who we really are, it can be a truly miserable, poisonous thing for us, and also for everyone around us. What I've noticed is that there is this vicious cycle when it comes to bitterness. And it doesn't really matter where you are in that circle, because it's like if you don't break the cycle, you remain in the cycle. So bringing this to your awareness hopefully is going to kind of like trigger some aha moments to realize like, oh, okay, this is where I am in the cycle. I can break the cycle, because you can. So where I'll start anyway is just using this slide, is where it says projector initiates. One of the things that you learn, whether you have a reading, whether you just look for information on the internet, or actually formally study human design, is that as a projector, we are not here to initiate. Our strategy is all about waiting for recognition and invitation, something that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But from a very, very young age, I mean, from birth, we are conditioned heavily to go out there and make things happen. Don't be a lazy ass. Don't be a bum. The sky's the limit. You can be whatever you want to be. And it's like this whole attitude of just like taking life by the horns, and a projector will really quickly figure out, even though it's like mystifying and then they end up blaming themselves and others for it. It's like until we realize that the problem is initiating, it's like hell. It's absolute hell, because there's this expectation, and that we feel like if we're not doing that, that we're a bad person, we're not trying hard enough, maybe we deserve to be a failure, like just all of this total BS that becomes part of our internal narrative. And so what ends up happening is that we initiate constantly. And I actually borrowed those two little images, the steering wheel and the brake pedal, from one of my more recent videos that's all about, what did I call it? Manifestation and law of attraction and manifestation, letting go of the mind to discover the magic of your unique trajectory. I think that's what I had called it. And one of the things that I talk about a lot in that video is how we think that we're in charge. We think that we're in control. We think that we are the driver, when in fact, we are not the driver. We're here to just be the passenger in the back seat, chilling out and looking out the window, enjoying the movie. So most of the time, when we're initiating, it's because we want to engineer a desired outcome, or we want to avoid an undesired outcome. So we're either trying to be this backseat driver, making things happen, or we're pumping on the brakes to be like, no, I don't want this, like this is bad. And so we will move into action to try to control our reality. When we do that, we end up meeting resistance. So that's where you see the next part. If you're going in a clockwise circle, you see that projector gets bitter. So due to the resistance that is created by initiating, it will often show up as either being rejected by someone or a situation, or being taken advantage of in some way. So maybe it works out. This thing that you start, this thing that you spark, this amazing idea that you have to do something, it happens. But what actually unfolds? Is it great? Is it awesome? I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm not saying that it can't ever happen. There could be lots of different factors that play in, but I would say 9 times out of 10, there will be some element of resistance. So maybe you get to do that thing, but you get totally shafted where you don't get paid, or you get paid way less than you had anticipated getting paid, or the person that you got together with for this project stole your ideas and then made a ton of money on their own, or just something, something ends up not working out. There's drama, there's just things that are not smooth, that are not easy. And then, of course, the projector gets bitter. And so what happens when the projector gets bitter is that it distorts their auric frequency. And so when our auric frequency gets distorted, it's like these nails on a chalkboard. And it really kind of shuts down the magic of our aura, keeping good things out, keeping like good things out of our reach, but also repelling others. As I mentioned before, we have an aura that is designed to be noticed. But when we get mired in bitterness, so when we're not using bitterness for what it's supposed to be used for, and we're just like sitting in it and stewing in it and ruminating about how shitty things are and how stupid we are and how dumb other people are and why is it like this, and just like sour lemon, it distorts our frequency. And then all of that magic, all of that potential to be actually noticed, recognized, invited, embraced by the right people, it shuts it down. And so then what happens? Well, it's like nothing's working. this and that. I've got to go back at it and initiate again. So as you can see, there's just this total loop. It's like a track that you get stuck on. So we will be talking about how to break out of that vicious cycle later on, but there's like this additional piece that I feel is really crazy, because I mean, this has been something really crazy in my life, and something that I just want to kind of like extend to you in your own contemplation to see how it plays in. So in my life, there has been, I mean, prior to human design for sure, and it's something that I see in so many clients, and not necessarily, I mean, projectors, it could be really intense, but it's not limited to projectors. There could be this almost like face off between bitterness and guilt. So let's just say, I mean, this whole thing, there's like this huge thing, the way that the two tie in together, like having this guilt about being bitter and then what that leads to. So as a projector, we are naturally going to have to deal with bitterness, but we have kind of vilified bitterness. It's something that we kind of like hate. We know that it's ugly. We don't really like it, but we can't help feeling it. And so there could be a lot of shame about that, but there can also be a lot of guilt. For example, I don't know, maybe a parent or a friend or somebody asks you to do something for them. You don't really have the energy to do it, but you're like, well, I should. There could be all of this guilt, or ways in which that you've maybe taken too much of something on and you're really feeling bitter about it, but then you really care about that person and you feel guilty and you're like, yeah, but I should be a good friend or a good this or lover or this or that. So there's this mingling, this like intermingling, and you can see that kind of behind the two fencing beings. I've got this image of the open center, not self themes. We're going to look a little bit at that later on, maybe in a bit of a different context, but there's all of this stuff. I mean, the mind is always 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like blah, 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 with this internal narrative that is, for the most part, made up of all of the stuff that we are taking in through our openness. And so there's all of these different places in which we can feel guilty. I didn't get this done fast enough. Oh, they're not going to think that I'm nice. Whatever. It could be, oh, I should make myself more available. I wasn't really making myself available when I should have. Maybe I'm going to be perceived as selfish, all of this stuff. And what ends up happening is that this in itself can really create another vicious cycle where we will act upon that guilt. We will then move into action, do things so that we will either not feel guilty, or because we're afraid that if we don't do it, that we will feel guilty. And then we do the thing, and then we feel bitter about it. And then we feel guilty about it. So then we do. So this also is kind of another, it's like a whole other vicious cycle where we can get really locked into it. And then not only are we resentful, bitter about the thing that we did that we knew inside wasn't really for us to do, but then we're also resentful towards ourselves. So it can just really kind of it just becomes this like exponential situation. And so the dark side of bitterness, this was this quote. I know there's like things floating around saying it was like Buddha who said it, but there is a website that I found where there are so many supposed sources of who said this quote. So I put nobody as the author of this quote. Resentment is like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die. So I don't know about you, but if I am completely honest about my life as a projector, I have definitely been a total swamp monster who has literally wanted to pull people into my black hole of funk. Like, so bitter about why somebody was like this with me, not feeling seen, not feeling heard, feeling rejected, feeling unimportant, feeling like a loser, feeling like nobody listens, like all of the, I should have put a violin here too, like all of the ways in which we could just totally victimize ourselves. But it can be really vicious because we can really hold on to this simmering resentment, hoping that it's going to hurt the other person. And I mean, ultimately, it might very well hurt our relationships. It could burn a bridge. It could create just unnecessary ugliness in our relationships. But the truth is that the one that it really hurts the most is us. It really hurts us. And when that festers, it can make us really, really sick. That is not the point of bitterness, and it does not have to be like that. You do not have to suffer or be miserable like that for the rest of your life. And so this is really the point that I want to get across, is that there is no need to victimize ourselves or alienate others. I have a couple of other videos here, and I put the thumbnails. One of them, which is Signposts of Resistance, Your Greatest Ally. It's quite a short video. I think it's about 20 minutes or so. I talk about our signposts in the context of a smoke detector and how annoying a smoke detector can be if you're just cooking something in the kitchen and it goes off, and then you take it down. But if you take it down, then when you really need it, it's not going to do what it needs to do. So when operating correctly, I mean, there's this threshold of being oversensitive. So going off all the time, this alarm going off all the time for the wrong things, versus the alarm going off for the right thing at the right time and serving its purpose. I mean, lives are saved all the time by smoke detectors that are working properly. I mean, waking you up in the middle of the night because there is a fire in the building and then moving to safety. So when our signpost of bitterness is properly calibrated, so when you're not literally fermenting in a swamp of your own bitterness anymore, when for the most part you're living in alignment and you're living your signature of success, something we're going to talk about later, more often than you're living in that state of bitterness, when the bitterness shows up, it's like, it's the good smoke detector. When there's that fire serving a purpose, telling you that there's something that needs your attention. So I definitely encourage you to check that video out if you have not yet already, because it goes into more detail about that and how brilliant our signpost is, what a gift our signpost is. And then I have another video called Getting Messy in Your Human Design Experiment. And in that video, I talk about the resistance factor. And so we're going to look at that here in the context of bitterness. So you might find yourself initiating or being involved in something and there's nothing. It's like, I mean, that's the ultimate, right? There's no snap. You see here, like my wrist with an elastic band. So there could be no snap, no resistance, ease and flow. Amazing. There could be a little twinge, or there could be an ouch, that stung, or there could be a seriously WTF, like that really hurt. So there's like a spectrum when it comes to meeting resistance. You could have a very, very little tinge of bitterness, or it could be all encompassing and invasive, like just really taking you over. So all of this is just geared towards cultivating more awareness about these signs and signals that are there to orient you to how you are really meant to operate. using bitterness in the way that it is designed to be used. And so there's a quote here from me that I came up with because, I mean, look, it might not be true for you, but it has been very true for me. Making others responsible for our bitterness is yet another way of outsourcing our authority. The huge thing about human design is that it is so rooted in sovereignty. Being a sovereign, self-responsible being who makes decisions according to their own authority, whether it be their own inner authority or their authoritative process, because projectors especially, they can have something inside of them that they can trust to make healthy decisions, or they might have a process of authority where there's something that they do over time that will then confirm their truth to them or not. So it doesn't matter whether or not you have a single definition design or whether you have a split design. I know that there can be a tendency for splits to either blame others, they could blame the world, or they could blame themselves for having this problem. But all of us in general, as projectors, with this whole theme of bitterness, there is a trend. We can be very, very victimized, and we can want to make everybody else responsible for our bitterness. Bitterness is not about other people. How are we wielding our energy? How are we wielding our energy, and what is our bitterness trying to tell us? Now, on to segment number 3. Recognition and invitation, the gatekeeper of gifts. So this is what I have this is the way that I see recognition and invitation. And there's a real reason why I call it the gatekeeper of gifts, which we will discover in this next segment. So back to this concept of, being designed to be noticed. I have this, and this is a legit post-it from my own bulletin board in my home office, something that I jotted down in desperation early into my experiment. I've now been experimenting with my design. It's been 4.5 years. And this was a quote from Ra Uru Hu that said, "When projectors stop hunting for the sweet, they will find themselves." And then you could see here, I've got that bowl of sugar with a little archer, just kind of like alluding to hunting for the sweet. And so because we are often so mired in this bitterness and just wanting anything to save us from having to feel that way, we will do anything to hunt for the sweet. It's like, make that bitterness stop. I want the sweet. So we could be so afraid of being unseen and rejected by others that we end up getting overzealous. I mean, if there's one thing across the board due to the fact that we don't have definition in the sacral center, is that we don't know when enough is enough. We can get really overzealous and make it our mission to overcome what we feel is a giant defect or handicap. It's like the Achilles heel of the projector is, I am not noticed. Nobody pays attention to me. I am unimportant. I am not special. All of that whole narrative, so that we go overboard. We go overboard, making it our mission to show everybody, no, actually, I am gifted. I am great. This is what I have to offer. So as deeply untrusting as we may be in our aura, we are designed to be noticed. Our definition, so the life force energy running through us, is designed to be recognized, and we are designed to attract invitation. And I mean, that's the irony, because we can feel like the most excluded people on the planet. So there is nothing sweeter than to be recognized for who we are and to feel embraced and included, but we are not here to go out looking for it, nor to engineer it. So this is tying in also to that vicious cycle that we talked about earlier, how well, I'm responsible. If I'm going to be noticed, it's because I need to put myself out there. I need to make it so that I'm seen. But no, we're actually really not here to go out looking for that acknowledgement, that recognition, that inclusion at all. And so what we end up being really good at in hunting for the sweet, oftentimes we will bark up the wrong tree. So really kind of being relentless in our pursuit of whether it's a person, it could be a love interest, it could be a professional opportunity, it could be a friendship, it could be so many different things. Uh, but just barking up the wrong tree, not getting that by going out and looking for it and trying with this person, trying with this situation, that it's actually keeping the very things that we want away. And of course, so I hope you like my little pig with a pearl necklace, casting pearls before swine. I think that that is technically I don't know, some saying from the Bible. I've got 9 fifth lines in my design. I'm definitely not into religion or the Bible myself, but I am very familiar with this concept of casting pearls before swine. And what does this mean? It means taking your treasure, your knowledge, your gifts, and just giving them away to people who do not appreciate them. Could be getting up on your soapbox and sharing your beliefs or your opinions or your knowing with the world without being asked. So what is really important is your own awareness of your unique superpowers. So are you aware? Are you aware of your own unique superpowers? There is a huge, like vast, monumental difference between analyzing ourselves to death and knowing what we're designed to be recognized for. This is a huge, huge trap. And I am still, okay, if I'm being completely honest with you, I still catch myself doing this often. Analyzing myself. When I am here, energetically, I am here for an outward focus on others. I am not here to analyze myself. And in fact, even if I try to, I will have blind spots with myself because we are not here for ourselves. If you are a projector and you need help, I mean, the best thing is to have a wing person, just another projector who you recognize, who you appreciate, who you feel comfortable with, to maybe explore things about yourself that you can't see. I mean, you might not even know that you don't see it, but it's always great to have, for a projector, to have a projector ally to help and kind of uncover our own blind spots. And so despite the fact that we're not here to be navel gazers and just like sitting around and analyzing ourselves to down to the very detail, it is so important that we know what we're designed to be recognized for. Not only in the context of being a natural advisor and guide, but whatever your specific definition is. If you're a projector, it means that you have to have a minimum of one channel in your design. I mean, you could have many channels, but you have to have a minimum of one channel. Each of those channels is an aspect of our life force that has a unique configuration, a unique theme, a unique superpower. So it's important to know what is being broadcast from you that is meant to be picked up by other people. In that, we don't need to have a megaphone to announce our gifts. Let our aura do the talking. I mean, this is something that you're going to encounter a lot in design, is to let your aura do the talking. We don't need a megaphone to announce our gifts. And while, yes, it's great if you do know what you're designed to be recognized for, maybe in your marketing or whatever, you have a way of weaving that in, but it's not like, getting up on a soapbox and telling the world, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I know about this, I can tell you all about that. That doesn't work for us. It actually serves to push other people away. We are not here for everyone, and it can be difficult. We're in a day and age where everybody is so obsessed with social media and how many likes you have and how many followers and how many subscribers, but we're really not here for everyone. We have a very specific fractal, and if we could just stop trying to be everything to everyone, that's something that can make things a lot easier. Learning to discern the frequency of correct recognition and invitation through the lens of our own authority and our own cognition is really, really important, because everything is frequency. And in life, there are going to be people that approach you, even if you are waiting for that recognition and invitation, which is really our strategy, not initiating, but just sitting back and waiting for the other person to recognize and invite us, whether it be to guide them or whether it to be to bond in whatever context. As you experiment, if you know what you're designed to be recognized for, there will be this major shift where you are able to discern if somebody is really, really recognizing you correctly and extending something to you, an invitation to you that is aligned to who you really are. Awakened projectors live a life full of trust. They trust that the right people, the right invitations, the right opportunities will see them, will come to them. It is this trust, this faith that ultimately gives them the courage not to live a life full of compromise, which is about the worst and most tempting thing a projector can do. And so that great quote leads us to our next slide, which is now looking at what we take in. So earlier we were looking at what we put out and how important it is to take responsibility for the way in which we wield our aura. But we also have to realize, as projectors who are here to guide the energy of others and to bond in ways that feel really full of sweetness and ease, the fact that we are typically quite open, and there are projectors that are not very open, but even a quad split projector with 8 defined centers, though that one undefined sacral center and their very specific bridging gates are all so crucial what it is that we're taking in. And there's another quote here from Ra that says, a projector can only awaken with the rigidity of respecting its own aura and what it will allow in. The problem is, because we have felt so desolate for most of our lives that we will literally do anything for recognition and invitation just to feel loved, appreciated, and accepted by the other. So unfortunately, many projectors are accepting crumbs, accepting abuse, doing anything just to have some company, just to have some sense of purpose in their life, and end up becoming a total trash bin. But guess what? You are not a trash bin. And wherever it is that you're open in your design, it's really important to be aware of the things that you are designed to be taking in, and yet which it is imperative to just be aware of the way that that works. Maybe you're like me and you have an undefined root and an undefined or totally open head center. You are totally open to all of the pressures of the world. Everybody else's stress, everybody else's mental pressure. There might be some people who, in their alignment, when you're with them, it actually feels good. Maybe it helps you get stuff done that needs to get stuff done. Maybe you actually are exploring things that are really inspirational and helpful to you as a projector, but you might not. It might be complete garbage that you are taking in, where you're just constantly distracted, losing focus, and always in a hurry to get rid of that pressure that you are taking in and amplifying. Maybe you are also like me and you have no motors defined. So no defined root, no defined sacral center, no defined solar plexus, no defined heart. And you are constantly taking in that motorized energy from other people. Is it healthy? Is it toxic? You might have an undefined G center and be very, very sensitive to the identity and to the direction of others. Are you under pressure to follow somebody else's direction, to mimic their identity? Do you have openness in the ajna? Are you susceptible to being hijacked into somebody else's way of thinking? So this is just to give you an idea. I've just put these little, my own labels here on open centers, centers that can be open in our design and the things that we can be taking in from others. So it's just in your best interest to be discerning as to who you surround yourself with, because for a projector, entourage is everything. I mean, everything for us is about the people with whom we interface. It can be a real make it or break it situation. Again, it's not about mentally deciding who you want to kick out or who you need to bring in. All of that is done through strategy and authority. But it's, again, cultivating awareness, cultivating what is healthy, realizing what is toxic, and just how another person, depending on the way that how we're wielding our energy, we might be perceived as toxic or nourishing, depending on our own energy management. And so going deeper into this whole concept of your human environment, we're not meant to be desperate for recognition or attention. We're really not. These gifts that we have, and I mean, I know it's like the last note on the page, but the gatekeeper of gifts, our projector strategy of waiting for recognition and invitation. It's because we have all of these gifts inside of us. But the thing is that they're not meant to be given away. They're not meant for everybody. So the only thing that protects us is actually waiting for that right key to fit into that lock. Recognition has a very distinct frequency. But that being said, recognition might not feel the same way across the board. And again, kind of going back to in one of the earlier slides where we talked about what we put out and the way that our aura interfaces with the other types. And I was talking about that video I had done with the projectors and the manifestors. One of the things that I also talked about in that video was how in my own process, I've come to understand that recognition from a manifester doesn't feel the same as recognition than, say, from either a generator or manifesting generator or another projector or a reflector. And I would say that, in fact, out of all of the types, that the one that really does feel different to me is recognition from a manifester. And there's times that I have been deeply recognized by a manifester, and yet because I had my own assumptions about what recognition felt like, there was a lot of ways that I was actually keeping things out that was just, my own, it was just my own issue. So not only learning to discern correct recognition, true recognition, but also discerning that recognition, like the nuances and recognition, depending on who you're with. It might be really different whether you're with a sacral being, whether you're with another projector. I mean, projectors were so like deep and penetrating, and it can feel like you're the only person in the world, like super important. With the generator or manifesting generator, you might feel totally enveloped and wrapped up. With the reflector, you may feel like you're really seen, and that they're, especially when you're aligned. I mean, I've had some of the most beautiful experiences with reflectors, and felt that recognition in such a profound way. So learning what true recognition feels like to you with different people that you interface with in your life. So recognition can come in many forms. It's not always something that is very formal and official. It could just be you walk into a store, or you walk into a room, or you enter a class or a meeting, and somebody catches your eye and gives you that nod or a smile or says hi. It could be something as mundane as that. But recognition is also very broad and something that you will need to experiment with in your own way to know. But I mean, ultimately, it's kind of like having that, it's like an opening. I don't know, it's just like an opening and an openness in that other person towards your energy. That being said, there are 4 things in life that the projector ultimately needs to have a more formal invitation to really kind of create that ease and flow. So what you'll see in the official literature is that it will always be about romantic love, so getting involved in a romantic relationship. So number 1. Number 2, bonding, so all kinds of either friendship, professional relationships. Then there is like what to study, so being invited into a path of study, invited into a career. And the 4th one is where to live. So really being invited to either go see a place, or would you like to move to this place with me? Something where it feels actually very formal, that you are being invited to go live at that other place. But there are so many bazillions of things that happen all of the time that are not a part of that big 4. And projectors can get really hung up on, yeah, but I wasn't invited. I mean, you're not going to be invited to, you might be invited out to lunch. You might be invited to pick a certain outfit in your closet to wear, but there are so many things that just don't require this official invitation. And in the day-to-day, when you are just alone with yourself, it's like, well, how do I manage my energy just like in my own life? And a lot of this has to do with your own authoritative process, your own inner authority, or your own process of authority. We're not going to be covering that so in depth in this video, but we will talk about it a little bit later. In terms of the invitation, though, this is something that still to this day I am experimenting with a lot, and it's becoming aware of the scope and the parameter of an invitation, because we can have all kinds of expectations, and in the end, it's our own expectations that end up shooting us in the foot or creating that bitterness, when in the end, it doesn't have to be that way. There may be somebody in your life who's inviting you to have a conversation with them, but I know that for me, one of my big things is that I have been so like thirsty for really being invited into somebody's life to bond, that I was so busy looking at the big picture and feeling insulted perhaps that I wasn't being invited into somebody's life to bond with them in the way that I wanted to, that I wasn't even able to appreciate the just simplicity of being invited to have a conversation, or just invited to have a profound, possibly even like series of messages back and forth, online, like it could be something that could still hold so much beauty and so much depth, but because there's this expectation and feeling like we're not getting, like it's being withheld from me, I want to have more. And it is also entirely possible that that's just not the correct relationship for you. This is something that you really do want and need. It's like enough with blaming the other person. We are not here for everyone, and everyone is not here for us. Again, conditioning is meant to help us do what we do best. So who we surround ourselves with, the energy, is it nourishing? Is it depleting? Is it healthy? Is it toxic? Is there ease and flow in this connection, or is there constant resistance? Am I always feeling bitter? So I have this whole thing about, this raft analogy about being surrounded by the right others. And if you are on an inflatable raft in the ocean, obviously having big holes in your raft is going to be a big problem, because you're going to just sink to the bottom really quickly. But what can happen is that over time, there could just be like these little almost pinpricks in the raft. You don't really notice, but then over time, you find yourself at the bottom of the ocean. And so every single relationship that we have in our life as a projector is either going to be, I guess you could say, encouraging the integrity of the raft, or it's going to be part of its demise. So awareness about who we have in our life is really, really important. And it's not necessarily something that can change overnight. It's not about being drastic. It might be about being drastic. I mean, some of us have designs where it can be very drastic, but there's just no transcending the mechanics of incorrect interaction. And this is something that I have had to learn the hard way, especially in my relationships with manifestors, because I am a projector who has had an abundance of relationships with manifestors, and feeling like just because I understand my own bitterness, and just because I understand the manifestor's anger, that I can transcend it mentally. But no, incorrect interaction is incorrect interaction. The bitterness that arises in me is trying to show me that on some level I have been incorrect with myself, and possibly incorrect with the other. And so the last few things here is really understanding the power of our no. Because we've been so desperate for that recognition, for that attention, for those opportunities, whatever it is, we will oftentimes say yes to the very things that we really need to be saying no to. Having healthy boundaries is not our strong suit, unfortunately. However, it is one of our greatest wisdom potentials. And I would not have believed it myself had I not actually put it to the test, as to really how powerful no, actually saying no to the wrong things, can help the right things find you. Another thing that's really important to take into consideration is, on top of what happens to us when we're interfacing with another person, one other single person, or even with the transit field and the way that that impacts our design, is what happens to us when we go into small and large groups. Some projectors have the capacity to be in a large group. And I mean, a small amount of projectors have that ability to be in a large group and to maintain their identity, and to maintain their, really to maintain their identity in that large group, while the majority of projectors really don't. Some projectors have the ability to maintain their identity in a small group. And then there's other projectors that lose themselves completely, whether it is in, 3 people or more. So it's super important to know, depending on your own definition, are you somebody who really does best interfacing one-on-one? What happens to you when you're not, and not taking that stuff personally anymore? So having that awareness can be such an asset, because you just don't go, looking for trouble where you don't need to look for trouble anymore. So this strategy, again, waiting to be properly recognized and invited, is the gatekeeper of our gifts. So we are no longer casting pearls before swine. We're no longer barking up the wrong tree. And when you will start to become very aware when you know where you're open and where you are being conditioned. If another person says to you as a projector, for example, with an undefined sacral center, wow, you're such a hard worker, you know that not only are you not being recognized correctly, but the true possibility is that you yourself have been trying to be a generator or manifesting generator, not knowing when enough is enough, proving yourself in this way that is not at all who you are, and then you become recognized for what you are not. So when we are operating out of alignment, when we are not navigating in the way that is really meant for us, we can be recognized for the wrong things. And then that is something that keeps on fueling our bitterness, because we're just putting ourselves in these positions, doing these things that we don't really want to be doing, but we're doing them because all of these different reasons, some of them which we're going to talk about in the next segment, but that ultimately has nothing to do with who you are, nothing to do with what you're here to be recognized for, and will lead to bitterness instead of to success. And so this now leads us to our final chapter, signature of success, not a conditioned ideal. So we talked a lot about our signpost of bitterness as a projector and what it is here to show us, and ultimately showing us that on some level, we've either been initiating, we haven't been waiting for recognition and invitation, there's something off, we're being maybe recognized for the wrong things, we're doing things out of guilt, we're being overzealous, we're trying to prove ourselves, we're not respecting our own rhythm. There's so many different facets to it. But as a projector, our signature is the signature of success. But that word success, just like the word aura, just like the word ego, two other words in human design that I feel are so misconstrued, this is something as well that there's a lot of preconceived notions about what it means. And of course, there is a conditioned ideal. To start off this with another quote from Ra, you're here to think, you're here to see, you're here to express an outer authority that provides guidance. You're here to organize energy, you're here to guide energy, and you're here to get rewarded for that. You're not here to be the worker. As projectors, we are not energy types. The energy types are the manifester, the generator, and the manifesting generator. This can be something that projectors can once again become victimized by. What do you mean I'm not an energy type? And this is the thing. There are projectors who have motor centers defined in their design. They can have a root center defined, they can have a solar plexus defined, and they can have a heart center defined. So there are projectors that are actually kind of under you could call them energy projectors, but they are still not what we call an energy type. Technically, projectors are an awareness type. And this is because we are here to be celebrated for our seeing, The biggest thing for a projector is to master something some kind of a system or something that people will then come to them for guidance about. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a coach, you don't have to be a healer, you don't have to be doing human design whatsoever. You could be doing virtually anything. You could be an expert gardener or chef or engineer or doctor or an architect or literally anything. And it could be a technical thing like a welder or just some kind of specific niche, like something that you are just the world's greatest freaking geek and authority about, that people will come to you for. So this is the thing, is that when they say we're not here to work, it doesn't mean that we all need to be sitting around on what's it called? Oh my goodness. Getting checks from the government and just kind of sitting around and buying lotto tickets and doing nothing. I mean, that's not what it means. It just means that we're not here to be doing the 9 to 5 grind. We're not here to be working in the way that, for example, a generator or a manifesting generator would do, because they're really here to work, but to use their energy to work in satisfying ways. It has to be satisfying for them. But we're not here to be doing that kind of work. It doesn't make us any better. It doesn't make them any better. It's just about knowing what we're designed for. So for us, seeing needs to be much more important than doing. It's really not about the doing. It's about the seeing. It is about everything that we have taken in our powerhouse of guidance and the way that we can use that to guide others. So it's important to notice who gravitates towards us organically, who asks for our input, who recognizes us for who we are, who values our presence, our guidance, our outer authority. So we didn't really get into outer authority much in here. I do talk about it in other presentations, but there is this huge difference between our inner authority and our outer authority. Our mind is an incredible treasure. It has the potential to be an incredible treasure for others. This is where our outer authority can shine, but only when we are truly aligned to our inner authority. So no longer making decisions from the mind, but rather through whatever it is inside of us or through our own authoritative process that we can really trust to make healthy decisions. Projectors and money is a huge, huge thing. Projectors often struggle very much when it comes to money, when it comes to finances. Some projectors, though, will say it only took one invitation, and now either they have a recurring gig or they have just found the benefactor, or they have an incredible salary. I mean, sometimes all it takes is just that one invitation. That being said, success as a projector is not only about that. This is another post-it that I had once written that I have on my bulletin board in my home office. The moment you stop being in control of your life is perfectly financed. So this was a quote for projectors. And so what this is saying is that, success can translate to dollars, but it's not about that. It's so crucial to start observing the mind. So these mental narratives, internal narratives, and what it is that we think we want. Because success is really, in many ways, there's like this conditioned ideal. So you could have maybe a certain number in your head of a salary. Maybe it has to be like 6 figures. I want to make a 6-figure outcome. When I make a 6-figure outcome, everything will be okay. Or I need to have this many followers on social media, or I need to be booked out. Like it could show up in so many different ways, and the mind can get really hooked into a definition of success that has nothing to do with what it actually means. It's important to see where we chase money, where we initiate to get it, where we can feel so desperate. I need to do this and get this money in order to survive. This is not to say that we don't need money to survive on this plane. We definitely do. But as projectors, when we are operating in alignment, we will attract everything that we need. We will always have enough. So it's possible too. Yeah, you might have a ton of money, but at what cost? Are you grinding away 9 to 5 in a work that you hate? Are you being recognized for who you truly are? Do you feel seen? Or are you being recognized for the wrong things and bending over backwards to meet the expectations and needs of others, but just feeling really empty inside? So we all have these natural profit potentials in our design. And in fact, my teacher, Lavina Archers, has an incredible profit potentials program. She has her own platform, Human Design Live, and she has groups, like very small groups going all the time. I'm not sure what the prerequisites are, but she is, I would say, the go-to person if you'd like to learn about the profit potentials that you have in your own design. But this is all just to say that money, money is a huge thing. It could be a terrible struggle for projectors, and it is important for projectors to have the money to be able to support whatever it is that we need for our mastery. I mean, it is important whether to go to school, whether to take courses, to do something. Maybe you can get a lot done with self-study too. I know that we can be really kind of resourceful as projectors and finding different ways to hone our mastery while respecting our means. So this is to say that we're really not here to engineer where the money is coming from, and to understand that when we are in alignment with our design, we will naturally attract people and opportunities and things that will somehow support us in our process. So we're coming here to pretty much the last slide, where we talk a little bit about success and a little bit about the role of strategy and authority in the context of success. So it's important to understand that success is your signature. It really is your birthright. As a projector, this is yours for the having. But you can see that next to that little point, I wrote entitlement and I barred it out, because this has nothing to do with entitlement. And in fact, the more entitled we are in our behavior, the more that we can be pushing away the very things that are meant for us on our trajectory. So there's a huge difference between really like having this inner standing of success. Success is the absence of resistance. I mean, this is something that you might need to come back to time and time again to contemplate. Success is the absence of resistance. It is that ability to move through space unencumbered. I talk about this a lot in my manifestor videos, because manifestors, with their like craving freedom of movement and their signature of peace, it's like that's what brings them peace. It's to be able to just kind of flow through life unencumbered. But for projectors, it's similar as well. It's like when we can flow through life unencumbered in our interactions in this beautiful way, that is success. And there are many projectors that can get so victimized thinking that, oh, it's so lame. Like this strategy is such a punishment. I'm so doomed. What? I'm supposed to just sit around and do nothing. I'm so limited. This is something that really needs to be reframed. Like if you really are in a position to receive the success that you are here for, that is something that absolutely needs to be reframed, because this is your freedom. Waiting for recognition and invitation is not only the gatekeeper of your gifts, but it is also the key to your freedom, the key to be able to flow through life with the absence of resistance. This is a preciousness that you carry within you. So no, it is not limiting, and no, it is not disempowering. This is something that allows you to bestow your gifts in the most beneficial, benevolent way for yourself and everybody in your life. Waiting is not passive at all. Waiting actually allows us to prepare for the next invitation. So instead of sitting around moping and feeling sorry for yourself, throw yourself into whatever it is that is going to help you hone your mastery. Staying attuned to all of the different ways in which you can be invited into studying things, exploring things, becoming an expert about something. So this is something that if you are really attuned to it, will unfold organically for you on your path. When you are in that position of not actively being invited into anything, this is almost like the most powerful time. The space between the notes, it's like, this is where the magic actually happens. So you have the opportunity for yourself to become empowered, stop being victimized by the waiting, seeing how waiting is actually one of the most powerful forces of creation and attraction, I guess, ever, and really tuning into that. Organic alignment to our mechanics is something that is very different than rigid dogmatic adherence. And I talk about this a lot in one of my videos, and I think it's, again, the getting messy in your human design experiment, because I myself noticed it's like a tremendous difference between just having a complete understanding and grasp of the way that my energy is meant to operate and flowing with it in a beautiful way versus I have to follow this strategy and authority to get what I want. Because the thing is that the mind can hijack the actual concept of strategy and authority to just, and it shoots you in the foot. It is not for an outcome. I mean, yes, ultimately we want to be able to experience the success that is here for us. But if you have this internal monologue that is saying, in order for, for me to get this, I have to do this, and doing it in a way that is just this like rigid adherence, but it's not at all embodying the actual energy that you are here to embody. And so lastly here, recognizing the frequency of your unique authority. I myself am a splenic projector, but the way that my spleen is configured is different than anybody else. I have a unique configuration. I also have that is paired with my feeling cognition. So if you have ever had access to your advanced human design body graph, we each have a cognition. And even though this is not technically, we don't teach this in following strategy and authority, but I know that for me, I am not only highly instinctive and intuitive with a taste for the pattern, but I also am very energetically sensitive. So I have needed to learn over time how to discern the distinct and unique frequency of my own authority. Sure, you could go out there and research, what it is to have a splenic authority or emotional authority or ego projected authority or self-projected authority or sounding board, environmental, if you're a mental projector. I mean, you could research this to death, but there is nobody else on this planet who is you. And it's your responsibility to learn how to discern what its distinct frequency is, because there is so much out there that can drown it out. And it is truly that our inner authority or our authoritative process that can help us to reorient back to our true nature and live the life that we are designed to live. So there we have it. I'm sure that there is a lot more that could be said, but we're going to wrap up for today. And just a huge thank you to those of you who made it this far. I finally took the plunge. I have been asked so many times if there was a way that I could be given a tip. I found that kind of amusing, but I guess it's a thing. So I have this new virtual tip jar by request. So if you don't need a session, but you enjoy my videos and you'd like to support my work, I now have a little space on buymeacoffee.com. And so it's just buymeacoffee.com/Melanie Halpert. And you can choose the amount that you give. And I mean, I just thought that was really cool. And there's obviously no obligation whatsoever, but I have deep and immense gratitude for each and every one of you who watches my videos, who appreciates what I have to share, who supports my work. And for any of you who might really want to work with me one-on-one, I do human design personal chart overviews by Zoom. So these are ideal for anyone who hasn't had a reading yet. They're 90 minutes recorded with a screen share so that you could go over them at your convenience. And for people who have had readings before or who are either in self-study but have a bit of a handle on things, coaching by design via Zoom also is something else that I do, where I could do either individual sessions, so you just take one session, or do a package of sessions if you want to have kind of a more consistent coaching experience. This can be something also that helps you get super like dialed in to your own experiment, and also is really incredible if you've been experimenting for a while and there are like legit situations in your life that you just want to run by someone and be like, hey, like, so this worked, this didn't really work, and just going in there like a mechanic and figuring out what's going on and ironing things out. So those are available in 60 or 90-minute sessions. And then I've got Living Your Design Awakening, which is a 9 to 10 week online course offered privately, offered in group. I have not done one for a while, but I think that there might be a couple of opportunities a bit later, maybe this summer and fall. So I'm recording this in 2022. And maybe even do a one in person here in Montreal. That would be really amazing if there is enough energy and interest in that. And I also do introductory human design lectures for private groups. So sometimes there's people who come across my videos and they're like, I love the way that you talk about this stuff, and I have a group of friends or at my workplace or whatever. I'd really love to have you come in and do an intro presentation for my posse, my crew, my people. I love doing that kind of thing. So just putting it out there. And if ever you need more information or you'd like to book with me, my email address is info@melaniehalpert.com. And a real public thank you for these slides. I have so much fun making these slides. So a big thank you to Slides Carnival and Slides Go. They're kind of these two sister sites that I've really been appreciating so much. And that's it for today. So I hope that this was helpful to you, and I welcome your feedback. Very much looking forward to seeing you again when the time is right.